Welcome to Bond and Bondage Helpline, where we untangle human emotions. No safe word required. I'm Stella Black. Hit the like and subscribe buttons for your weekly glimpse behind the curtain of human behavior. Today, we're talking about something super important: attachment styles. Have you ever wondered why some people seem chill in relationships while others get super anxious or pull away? Well, believe it or not, a lot of this comes down to how we formed emotional bonds as kids. But don't worry, attachment styles aren't permanent, and understanding them can seriously change your relationships for the better. So today, we're breaking it all down: what attachment styles are, how they affect your love life, friendships, and even your self-worth. We'll be pulling insights from experts like Dr. Robert Sapolsky and diving into some real-life examples. Plus, I'll give you some exercises you can do right now to help build healthier connections. So, let's start with the basics. Attachment theory was first developed by a psychologist named John Bowlby back in the 1950s. His research showed that the way babies bond with their caregivers sets the foundation for how they connect with others later in life. Think of it this way: if a baby consistently gets love and attention, they learn that people can be trusted. If they experience neglect or inconsistency, their brain develops ways to cope, which can sometimes make relationships tougher later on. Fast forward to today, and researchers like Dr. Sapolsky help us understand how all of this plays out in adult relationships through neurobiology. Babies start forming attachment patterns as early as 6 months old. If a caregiver is responsive and attuned to the baby's needs, comforting them when they cry, feeding them on time, offering warmth and affection, the baby develops a sense of security. But if a caregiver is inconsistent, distant, or neglectful, the baby learns that the world is unpredictable. Over time, the brain wires itself to expect either safety and trust or inconsistency and stress. These early interactions shape our coping mechanisms for life. When a baby experiences consistent stress due to unreliable caregiving, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal, HPA, axis, our central stress response system, can become overactive. This leads to heightened cortisol levels, which in turn can make a person more prone to anxiety, hypervigilance, or emotional withdrawal later in life. This process can be even more pronounced in neurodivergent individuals, such as those with autism or ADHD, who may already process social cues and emotional regulation differently. So now let's talk about the 4 main attachment styles: secure, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized. Each one shapes how we deal with love, friendships, and even our self-worth. I want you to take a moment and think about your own relationships. Do you recognize any of these patterns in yourself or others? People with secure attachment are comfortable with emotional closeness, but they're also okay on their own. They trust their partners, communicate well, and don't freak out over minor relationship issues. If you're secure, you're more likely to have healthy, long-lasting relationships. Science time. When someone has a secure attachment, their brain releases more oxytocin, the bonding hormone. This makes it easier to trust and connect with others. Securely attached people tend to navigate conflict in a healthy way, addressing issues without becoming overly defensive or shutting down. They don't fear abandonment or feel smothered by intimacy. They strike a balance naturally. Studies show that people with secure attachment also tend to have lower stress levels in relationships because their nervous system isn't constantly on high alert. Secure attachment often stems from a childhood where caregivers were consistently responsive. Babies who are soothed when they cry and encouraged to explore their environment develop confidence that their needs will be met. This confidence carries into adulthood, making secure individuals more likely to trust others and regulate their emotions effectively. Neurodivergent perspective. Some neurodivergent individuals, especially those with autism, may form secure attachments but express them in non-traditional ways, such as preferring structured interactions or struggling with conventional social expectations. However, their trust and bond with loved ones remain strong. Now let's talk about avoidant attachment. This is when someone keeps their emotional distance in relationships. They might say they don't need anyone or feel suffocated when things get too close. Avoidantly attached individuals often had caregivers who were emotionally unavailable or dismissive. As babies, when they cried or reached out for comfort, they may have been ignored or discouraged from expressing emotions. Over time, they learned to self-soothe by shutting down their emotional needs. From a neurobiological perspective, avoidant attachment is linked to lower oxytocin levels and an overactive amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for detecting threats. Because their early experiences taught them that emotional vulnerability was unsafe, their brain developed strategies to suppress emotional responses. This makes intimate relationships feel overwhelming or even threatening. Avoidantly attached people may struggle with deep emotional connections, preferring to be independent rather than risk rejection. This doesn't mean they don't crave love. It just means they have difficulty expressing their emotions or trusting others fully. In relationships, they may withdraw during conflict, avoid deep discussions, or feel uncomfortable with too much emotional closeness. Neurodivergent perspective. Some autistic individuals might display behaviors similar to avoidant attachment, but instead of fear of intimacy, it might stem from sensory overload or difficulty interpreting social cues. Understanding this difference can improve communication in relationships. Avoidant attachment can be changed through self-awareness and conscious effort. Therapy, journaling about emotions, and practicing vulnerability in small steps can help rewire emotional responses. Building trust with understanding partners is also key. Anxious attachment. People with an anxious attachment style often fear abandonment and seek constant reassurance in relationships. This stems from early experiences where a caregiver was inconsistent, sometimes attentive, sometimes distant. This unpredictability causes the brain to develop a hypersensitive stress response, making relationships feel like emotional roller coasters. From a neurobiological standpoint, individuals with anxious attachment have an overactive amygdala, the brain's fear center, and high levels of cortisol. This keeps them in a state of hypervigilance, always scanning for signs that their partner might leave or reject them. They may become overly clingy, interpret minor issues as major threats, and experience deep emotional distress when they feel ignored. Neurodivergent perspective. Some neurodivergent individuals, particularly those with ADHD, may experience heightened emotional reactivity, making anxious attachment even more intense. Their brains often struggle with impulse control, making emotional regulation in relationships challenging. Here are some exercises to help combat anxious attachment. 1. Self-soothing techniques. Deep breathing. Practice the 4-7-8 technique. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 7, exhale for 8 to calm your nervous system. Progressive muscle relaxation. Tense and relax different muscle groups to reduce physical anxiety. Affirmations. Repeat positive affirmations like, I am worthy of love, or I am safe even when I'm alone. 2. Journaling for emotional awareness. Daily check-in. Write about your emotional state, triggers, and responses in relationships. Reframing thoughts. If you feel abandoned, challenge the thought. Is there real evidence, or is my anxiety making me assume the worst? 3. Attachment rewiring practices. Secure role models. Observe and learn from people with secure attachment, friends, family, or fictional characters. Imaginary secure attachment. Visualize a nurturing caregiver providing reassurance when you feel anxious. Gradual exposure. Slowly practice tolerating small amounts of distance from loved ones without seeking immediate reassurance. 4. Strengthening independence. Solo enjoyment. Engage in activities you love without needing validation. Reading, painting, hiking. Personal goal setting. Focus on personal growth rather than relationship security. Achieve small milestones for confidence. 5. Mindful communication. Pause before reacting. Before sending that anxious text, take a moment to assess whether you're responding from fear. Secure communication. Express needs calmly. I feel anxious when I don't hear from you. Can we find a way to communicate that works for both of us? 6. Therapy and professional support. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. Challenge anxious thought patterns. Somatic therapy. Learn body-based techniques to regulate anxiety. Attachment-focused therapy. Work with a therapist to rewire insecure attachment responses. Disorganized attachment. Disorganized attachment is often linked to trauma or neglect. The brain struggles to form a clear attachment strategy, leading to intense emotional conflict. These individuals may crave closeness, but also fear it, creating a push-pull dynamic in relationships. They might struggle with emotional regulation, shifting between extreme neediness and withdrawal. Neurobiologically, disorganized attachment is associated with both an overactive amygdala and a dysregulated stress response. Trauma can cause the brain to alternate between hyperarousal, fight or flight, and hypoarousal, shutdown, making emotional stability difficult. Neurodivergent perspective. Disorganized attachment can be heightened in neurodivergent individuals due to difficulties with emotional regulation and processing social dynamics. Therapy, mindfulness, and secure relationships can help individuals rewire these responses over time. Here are some exercises to help combat disorganized attachment. 1. Self-awareness and reflection. Journaling. Prompts. Write about moments when you felt both drawn to and afraid of closeness. What triggered these feelings? What thoughts accompanied them? Identify triggers. Track moments of emotional dysregulation in relationships. Are there common patterns? Recognizing them can help you anticipate and manage reactions. 2. Emotional regulation techniques. Grounding exercises. When feeling overwhelmed, use the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. List 5 things you see, 4 you feel, 3 you hear, 2 you smell, 1 you taste, to stay present. Breathwork. Try box breathing. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. This calms the nervous system and reduces impulsive reactions. 3. Developing trust in relationships. Gradual exposure to vulnerability. Share small personal thoughts or feelings with a trusted person and observe their response. Increase vulnerability over time. Safe relationship mapping. Identify people in your life who are consistent and reliable. Spend more time nurturing those relationships. 4. Inner child. Healing. Reparenting exercises. Imagine yourself as a child needing comfort. Write a compassionate letter to your younger self, reassuring them that they are safe and loved. Mirror work. Look in the mirror and say affirmations like, I am worthy of love and safety, to challenge deep-seated fears. 5. Mindful attachment practices. Somatic awareness. When feeling emotionally conflicted, scan your body for tension. Breathe into those areas and release tightness. Secure attachment role models. Observe and learn from people who display healthy attachment behaviors. What habits do they practice? Try to emulate them. 6. Professional support. Therapy. Seek trauma-informed therapy like EMDR or somatic therapy to process unresolved attachment wounds. Group support. Join support groups for relational trauma to connect with others who understand your experience. Understanding your attachment style can change how you approach love, friendships, and even your relationship with yourself. If this video helped, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into psychology and relationships. That's enough for now. Your scars might be on the inside, but scar patches come in all shapes and sizes. Find your patch and protect them with your life. See you next week.